Hello, my dears. Mrs. Surratt here. I thought I might be able to help you with your 2.03 assignment if I were to give you a little video that kind of went through the assignment itself, because I know that some people were feeling like, I don't know what to do. So hopefully I can help you with that. So, the first question you might be asking yourself is, where do I even find the assignment document? Ms. Surratt, I don't read minds, and guess what? I don't either. I don't blame you. So the assignment document you're going to need is located on the OHS content page. As you know, we have no USA Test Prep. We only have the content page, which kind of, is good because now you don't have to look for anything else. So the first thing you're going to do is go to the content page. You're going to scroll down till you get to Instructional Cycle 1. You're going to scroll below that to get to Unit 2, Biological Basis, and scroll down one more for 2.03 subject. And you'll notice that all my assignments or quizzes, they're labeled with whatever section they're in. So if you're thinking, I don't know where to look, and you see 2.03, then you know, okay, let me go to Unit 2, let me go to Section 3 of Unit 2 and see if I can figure it out. So once you get there, of course, scroll back up to the 2.03 brain, and then you're looking for the section on the graded assignment or 2.03 assignment. And you'll see this fun little symbol right here, and I know when I circled it, I did a crappy job. Sorry, I'm not good with that. But it looks like a little document inside like a little, I don't know, like desk. You know, like those things on the desk that you put documents in? Maybe I'm just old. But this means it's a Dropbox, and you can upload your project to the Dropbox. And if you're not sure how to do that, feel free to check out on the content page. If you look above where it says Instructional Cycle 1, you'll find the Magic Calendar, and in there I do keep some documents that are like how-tos, how to do a Dropbox, how to find different things that you need. Now perhaps you are saying to yourself, Ms. Surratt, I can't find Unit 2 Biological Basis, which my question would be, did you complete the Unit 1.05 test? If you didn't, you don't have access to Unit 2. If you did and you still don't have access to Unit 2, please email me because that's an issue. But if you haven't completed that 1.05 test, you're just not going to have access yet. So pause the recording, go study for and complete the test, and then rejoin us. All right, so let's start with the first part of the assignment, and that is the forebrain. And the forebrain is that part of the brain. It includes our cerebrum and our higher brain functions. This is kind of what makes us the humans that we are. And you need to include the two hemispheres, left and right, as well as the four lobes. And I'm going to go through them. But there are some great websites, and these are on your assignment document as well as in the description that you can get to. Includes this website is called The Brain from Top to Bottom, I think, by McGill, and it will look like it's in French because it was originally written in French and then translated. It's a super cool website. And if you use beginner, for example, it gives you more simple language. If you used advanced, you can really get into the parts of the brain. So it's really cool. It gives you levels to choose how you want to learn. It's a really neat idea. Then the Mayfield Clinic talks about different parts of the brain that will help you as well. And I made you a Quizlet on neurons, so that should help. So I'm doing what I can to help you out, and if you need more, please let me know. All right, let's talk about that left and right hemisphere. Now, a lot of my friends want to say to me, the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body. The right hemisphere controls the left side of the body. You got it, but is that all they do? I mean, why do we have all this brain just to control my right or my left side? So what else do they do? And this is where you could get into some of the parts of the left brain, like how it's very logical. You know, it likes mathematics, it likes language. You might point out that when you're doing something in math class or when you're working with your numbers, that's your left brain. Your right brain, on the other hand, is your creative and imaginative side. This is what we call the holistic side of your brain. It kind of sees the big picture of something. It's really good at recognizing faces. If you walk into a room, you don't have to stop and say, okay, I see a refrigerator, and I see an oven, and I see a microwave. This must be the kitchen. You just know. You see them and you take them all in at once, and your brain goes, oh, hey, kitchen. That's your right side. So there's lots of cool things you can point out here. I'm just showing you a few things. but you can get into all this stuff. Let's get into the lobes. There are 4 lobes. See if I can move myself a little out of the way here. The frontal lobe, which is so called because it's in front, I know, like kind of right up in here. This has to do with making you, your personality, your decision making, speech, all of this stuff is in the frontal lobe. All right, temporal lobe, this really is about hearing. This hears and interprets information. Your auditory abilities are all in your temporal lobe, and it actually extends to either side. So it is on either side of your head, much like your ears. Back up here, we have our parietal lobe, and one of the things that's really important with this guy is sensation. This guy is all about interpreting and understanding most of the sensations, kind of putting that perception with it. So if we smell something or see something or taste something, what's the big deal? The parietal lobe's the one going, oh, hey, I remember that, or ooh, that's good stuff, you know. And then last but not least, our occipital lobe, which, guys, that fries me that it's all the way back here, right? Our eyes are here. It's all the way back here, but the occipital lobe handles vision. So I just think that's so cool that it has to go all the way back. But I think that's why sometimes, have you ever had that feeling where you're like, you see something, but it takes a moment for your brain to kick in and go, oh, you know, you need to do this. I think it's because that takes that split second to get all the way to the back of the head. It's my theory. I'm sticking to it. All right, the next question I ask you is, what is the midbrain? And you need to tell me what the midbrain is. And this is in the middle of our brain, and it does control strong emotions and memories. So our midbrain is kind of the part of our brain that it's a little more of the survival part of our brain. A lot of animals do have midbrains. So this is the part where we're going to experience, you know, like that intense feeling of anger or that intense feeling of love. That's all in your midbrain. The hypothalamus is a dude who provides a lot of our essential hormones. Believe it or not, every physiologic function has a hormone associated with it. For example, are you hungry? Well, there's hormones like ghrelin that tell you when you need to eat, or leptin that tell you when you need to stop eating. Are you thirsty? Are you sleepy? All of these things are regulated by a hormone. So when you feel like, for example, if you're like, it's cold in here, your hypothalamus created a hormone that went, whoa, cold, and let you know. Your thalamus, I like to think of this as like your post office of your brain. You know, you think about all those letters coming in, all those letters going out, boxes and all sorts of things going on. Well, your thalamus is much like that post office in that it's a processing center. Any information that comes from the spinal cord and cerebellum that needs to go up to the upper parts of your brain, that goes through your thalamus. So it's kind of putting things where it needs to go. And it controls sleep, consciousness, and alertness. So if you're kind of feeling like, oh, I can't stay awake, you know, you might be like, hey, thalamus, dude, I need you to help me out here. And then it'll get the hypothalamus to make that awake hormone. And then our hippocampus is not a school for hippos, although that would be kind of cool. It helps us convert short-term memories into long-term memories. That's the number one thing you need to know. It does have to do also with strong emotions, but really it's important to know that. So whenever you're having trouble, like remembering what we just talked about in psychology class, you know, talk to your hippocampus. You can kind of rub the back of your head and just be like, hey, dude, come on, wake up. I need you to go. So then we have the hindbrain. And the hindbrain, being back here, oh, I moved the picture, sorry, being back here is, there we go, I'm trying to get the picture back, is your oldest part of your brain. It is the most basic part. It's what we call the reptilian or lizard brain. Not because you run around making a face and sticking your tongue out, but because it's the oldest part of the human brain and it controls your most basic functions, especially your involuntary ones. And the part I specifically request is the brainstem. And a lot of people say, oh, the brainstem's awesome because it connects the head to the spinal cord. Yeah, but what else does it do? I mean, the brainstem, it's like you want to breathe, you want to digest, you want your heart to beat. All of these things have to do with the brainstem, and there's several parts to it. But make sure you point out that not only does it connect the brain to the spinal cord, but it also controls like our heart beating and our breathing and stuff like that. All right, and last but not least are neurons. What are neurons? Neurons are the basic units of the nervous system. They allow communication of information around our brain and our body. Neurons, one neuron by itself is not very smart, but you put a whole network together of neurons. I did this in class the other day and people thought it was awesome, but you put that whole network of neurons together and suddenly you've got a supercomputer that is unable to be beat. And the neuron has specific parts I want you to mention. The first are these tree-like pieces called dendrites, and they receive information from other neurons. So the information comes into the dendrite and it goes to the cell body or soma. Now, not every piece of information your brain decides to actually communicate. Some pieces they're like, that's not important, which is why you might be like, oh my gosh, I just had that information a moment ago. Well, the cell body or soma has decided, oh, we don't need that information anymore. So it decides what should travel to the next neuron. And once it comes up with something that should travel, it goes down the axon. And the axon allows information to travel from the cell body or soma to the synapse for processing and going to another neuron. But as you can see, this is a really thin piece, like a wire. And if you think about wires, you don't just put a wire on the ground, you actually insulate it, right? Well, that is the purpose, I'll move myself up here, of the myelin, this sheath, and it protects the axon and allows that information to move through and keeps it safe. You know, it's also, if you think about like a really thin wire, how easy it would be to break or bend, that prevents it from doing that too. And last but not least, the synapse. This is the space between two neurons, and it's where information is encoded on a neurotransmitter. Remember, we talked about those? Those are chemical messengers. So the information doesn't just float around. It actually gets put on a neurotransmitter, and that neurotransmitter is like, I know where to go. And it goes to the next neuron where it starts in the dendrites and works its way through. So if you think about the millions and billions of bits of information just floating around our bodies, shooting around, it's absolutely amazing. So as I said, one neuron, practically useless, but you put a whole bunch of neurons together and you really got something. So here's what you want to do with your assignment. Think about a character that you want to use to share this with kids. You know, some people have used the Flash, Superman, you know, superheroes are big, Winnie the Pooh, Inside Out characters or other Disney characters, princesses, gosh, Paw Patrol. I'm trying to think of all the ones I've gotten. The Wiggles. I mean, you have fun with that. And maybe you want to use an anime that's not really for kids, like Naruto, but you want to bring it down to the kids' level. That's fine. Sure, whatever. Have fun. You're looking at a kid who's about 5 or 6. I'm not going to take off points if you explain this to a child who's 8 versus a child who's 5, okay? That's just to give you a range to know what you're doing. And then maybe you want to make a PowerPoint where you put the information on a slide and, you know, maybe you do the left hemisphere on one slide and your character's, I'm trying to think of one, Winnie the Pooh, and then on the next slide you do the right hemisphere and your character is Tigger, and you can just go back and forth. I've had people make videos where they do like I'm doing, where they explain all the different parts to the kids. I've had kids draw comic books or write stories. So what you do to explain this information is really up to you. Just think about, like, if you were a kid, what's the way you like to learn? And if you're thinking, I can't make a TV show, but I like to learn from TV shows, make a TV storyboard. There's lots and lots of cool ideas. So hopefully this kind of helped guide you. And if you have any questions, please let me know.